Chapter 5, Social Interaction, Groups, and Social Structure. Some topics we are going to go over on this chapter are social interaction and reality, elements of social structure, understanding organizations, social structure, thinking about it globally, and social policy and organizations. You might have heard the phrase perception is reality, and our reality is shaped by our perceptions, evaluations, and definitions. It's the labels we put on things, it's the boxes we put people or situations in. It depends on our personal experiences, our morals, but we see everything through the lens of our own perception. Following is a list of the elements of the social structure that we are going to go over in the next few slides. Status. So it's a range of socially defined positions within a large group or society from lowest to highest. So we could think of socioeconomic status, and that would be how much money somebody makes, but also the social status of that would be like your social collateral. So some people, like if you think of an actor or actress that is famous, but maybe they lost their money over time. So they would still have a high social status, but they might have a lower economic status. In the last slide, I gave you an example of socioeconomic status as far as statuses go, but there's various types of statuses. We have ascribed status and achieved status. So an ascribed status is a status that you're just given just for being born. So you can think of someone that is born into the monarchy or someone that is born into a family that is so wealthy that they'll never have to work if they choose not to. Achieved status is a status that a person earns. So you can think of somebody getting a promotion, getting a title as far as their accomplishments. So any of that would be an achieved status. So this diagram, this figure, is an example of ascribed statuses and achieved statuses. So an example of an ascribed status would be that she's Latina and that she's a daughter. And then achieved status would be that she's a roommate or a friend. A master status is any status that you have that is more dominating than the others. And the example from the text is that the master status could be race or it could be gender. Those are things that people usually notice about others. Social roles. So social roles are expectations that people are given when they occupy a certain position. So role conflict is basically when two or more social positions held by the same person causes issues or incompatible expectations. So the example from the book is basically of a supervisor. So she's been working there for 10 years and then she gets promoted to be supervisor. But then she has friends and people that she relates to more that's on the assembly line. So she might have some role conflict with dealing with her new position and also trying to relate to her friends. And then there's role strain. And that's when difficulties can arise from the same position that imposes conflicting demands and expectations. So the first one is two or more positions. The second one is one position. And the example from the book is they use a criminologist from the Navajo Nation. And he's part of the police department. So, of course, he has to follow the rules of being a police officer because they take an oath. But then he also has to follow the rules of being a peacemaker for the Navajo Nation because that's how they deal with some of the conflicts instead of arresting people. So because of his culture and because of his race, also because of his job, he might experience role strain. Role exit. So the person can start to disengage from their role. So EBOG has 4 stages, and that would be doubt, searching for alternatives, an action stage or departure, and then creating a new identity. So an example of that could be somebody that is transgender. So they have the person that they were before and then the person that they are after. And then a lot of family members or friends might have an issue because they see, they're used to seeing this person in one light or as one person versus the new person that they have become. And then parts of them are still the same. Groups. We have primary and secondary groups. So a primary group could be like your family. It's where you have intimacy in a close face-to-face relationship. And a secondary group is informal and impersonal. So it could be if you work for a big corporation or a big factory, a big hospital, and you might have a little mutual understanding. So the only thing you might have in common with some of your coworkers would be that you all care for other people in the hospital. In-groups and out-groups. So an in-group is a group that you feel comfortable with, you feel like you belong. So it could be somebody that's part of a support group. It could be part of your political party. It could be a group that represents your race. And an out-group would be a part of a group that you don't belong to, and that can cause conflict. A reference group could be thought of as like a standard. So it's what we're referring to when we look at other people or other groups. So you have your own ideas of how people should be, and that would be like your reference group. And anybody that is outside of that, that you might deem radical or different, you would be judging them by using your reference. Coalitions have a temporary or permanent alliance toward a common goal. Some are short-lived. It just depends on the situation. But when it comes to political action committees and things like that, people will form a coalition in order to have their voices heard more. Social networks are basically relationships you have with other people. Social networks are very important when it comes to your patients, when it comes to your family, when it comes to getting a job, when it comes to basically moving your status up in society. Social institutions. So they are an organized pattern of beliefs and behaviors centered on basic social needs. So one of the examples would be that personnel could be looked at as the family, and anytime a person passes on, then we as a family try to have more babies in order for society. Understanding organizations. So with formal organizations, we have a group designed for special purpose and structured for maximum efficiency. So you can think of the U.S. Postal Service or McDonald's. An example from the book goes on to say with scribe status, those who become lawyers and pass the bar, men make about $6,000 more than women. Bureaucracy. So it is a component of formal organization that uses rules and hierarchical ranking to achieve efficiency. So when we think of bureaucracy, we think paperwork, we think DMV lines, just anything that's going to take a long time. And Weber had an ideal type, and it's a model for evaluating specific cases of bureaucracy. And he based that on religion, government, education, and business. Characteristics of a bureaucracy. So division of labor. Labor has to be divided in order to make things run more efficiently, more smoothly. However, sometimes that gets in the way of things running smoothly because maybe one office won't connect with another, or they don't contact another. Paperwork might get lost. So there's positives and negatives. Hierarchy of authority. So there's a chain of command that we need to follow. Some people are in higher positions with a higher pay grade versus others that still have important work, but maybe others might find it menial. Written rules and regulations. It is important for people to know what is expected of them, and maybe leading to the imagination that they could have a promotion later on and have goals. And personality. So companies are about companies, business is about business, and we have laws to reduce biases, but that could also lead to feelings of alienation when businesses or companies are impersonal, because people don't feel like there's loyalty to them from the company. They don't feel like a family, and you might get that more so working at a smaller business or a family business. and employment based on technical qualifications. So that discourages favoritism, and they're more so looking for people that can work hard or that have the skills that they desire that fits the job. And it kind of takes out nepotism, and that's where like you might promote your family member or hire people that are close to you only. With a little more explanation from the last slide. So division of labor can lead to alienation. People don't feel like they're a family, or they don't know the people that they work with. Trained incapacity. So workers become so specialized that they don't know how to do anything else. And then there is a hierarchy of authority, and so people have a chain of command, one under the other. When it comes to written rules and people know what is expected of them, that can be a good thing, but then it could also be a bad thing since some people won't think outside the box. They might have goal displacement since they're only doing what they're told to do and not trying to go above and beyond. And then in personality, as mentioned before, people don't feel close to one another. The bureaucratic norms will dictate their official duties. So they're just following paperwork. They're not really having that face-to-face contact that people desire. Employment is based on technical qualifications, certifications, licenses, things like that. However, there's a Peter principle, and it says that people will rise to their final level. So maybe they'll keep having promotion after promotion after promotion, and then finally get to a place where they really don't know how to do their job, but they also aren't growing. Bureaucracy is a process in an organization. It can also be a movement, but basically when we think of bureaucracy, we think of something that's menial and takes a lot of time. An oligarchy ruled by a few, so all businesses might end up sort of shaped like a pyramid. Basically, the higher you get, the less people that are in charge, and oligarchy is where everything is ruled by just the few at the top. Bureaucracy and organizational culture. So with classical theory or scientific management, workers are motivated by things that are outside of them, like economic rewards, so higher pay, incentives, bonuses, things like that. Maybe some people have access to a car or a company credit card, but they're basically saying that we're trying to make things work more efficiently, so we'll just pump out more money into the people, and hopefully that'll just make the company grow more. But on the other hand, we have the human relations approach, and that focuses on people and participation and communication. So you'll have like a small group behavior. People talk to one another. They talk about workers' feelings, if they feel appreciated or frustrated. And so those two theories are on the opposite ends. Durkheim's ideas. So we have mechanical solidarity, and that focuses on the collective consciousness that emphasizes group solidarity. So it's almost like if you think of a factory. So one person will have one job, another person will have another job, and they all work together as a whole, but you specialize in that one job. Whereas organic solidarity is the collective consciousness resting on society's needs. So it's a complex division of labor, and it's more like what we have now, where some people know how to do many jobs. So it's individuals are interdependent. So you work by yourself, but you also rely on one another. Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. So for Gemeinschaft, it's a small community in which people have similar backgrounds and life experiences. So it's like a small community where everyone knows one another. And Gesellschaft is where large community in which people are strangers and feel little in common with other community residents. So that would be like your larger city or your urban neighborhoods. So this table is a comparison of Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Um, so Gemeinschaft is more about rural life. It's a small town. People know each other. It's more like a family. People work together. There's community. There's unity. There's a low tolerance for deviance. So that's like deviant behavior will be like crime, things like that. And they emphasize ascribed status. So things that you're given at birth just for being born into a certain lifestyle. And social change is relatively limited because people are living in their ways. They're comfortable with their ways, and that's okay with the people that live there. And then Gesellschaft is urban life, so it's like a bigger city, so everyone doesn't know each other. Everything's not common. People are different, speak different languages, are different races. They take tasks that are more impersonal because everybody's pretty busy, so they're kind of rushing. They don't really have time for the small talk. So relationships are subordinate because they think more about keeping society running. Privacy is valued, so people might want to live further apart, or have their doors closed, or they might not tell their neighbors things because they don't consider them family, whereas Gemeinschaft does. There's a greater tolerance toward deviance just because we know crime happens. The more people there are, the less people know each other, and so it's more tolerant. And there's emphasis on achieved status, and those are things that people work for. And social change is evident. You can see the differences of people probably with every generation.